This game's a nightmare. The Wumpa Islands are anything but relaxing. Welcome to episode 5, Christmas 1996, a catalogue order, a 6-year-old me, and a console that was about to change my life forever. The birth of the PSX Index.
The cause of past failures. Moron! This Bandicoot will be my general, and he will lead my Cortex commandos to world domination. This time I shall reign triumph.
Welcome back, Index Breakers. I'm Parasine. We're 5 games into the 1278 game mission to document every North American PS1 release. Last week, Twisted Metal 2 gave me a migraine and a deep-seated fear of ice cream trucks. I needed a cozy reset. I wanted something vibrant, something colourful, something that didn't require me to drive a tank with my elbows. Enter the 1996 legend Crash Bandicoot. This game made Naughty Dog a household name and gave Sony the mascot it desperately needed to stop Mario from stealing all the lunch money. But here's the thing about cozy games from 1996. They were designed by people who clearly didn't want you to finish them. 1996, a catalogue order, a 6-year-old me, and a console that was about to change everything. Welcome to the PSX Index. Welcome back. I'm Parasine, and we are 5 games into a 1278 game odyssey. But today is personal. Crash Bandicoot was my first ever PS1 game. I was 6 years old, and I remember my mum ordering it from a catalogue. There was no Klarna back then, no interest free, paying for. If you bought on credit, you were paying the price, sometimes double, just to get that grey box into the living room. It came from that legendary chunky UK double case, bundled with 5 games that would define my childhood: Soul Blade, or Soul Edge in the US, Tekken, Tomb Raider, and the absolute stinker, Power Soccer. But side note, I hate football. The thought of hundreds of football games waiting for me on this index is a personal version of hell. But back then, I played Power Soccer until the disc cried. There was no internet. You didn't passive play a game while scrolling on your phone. You played what you had until the dual case looked like a jigsaw puzzle and the PS1 laser had practically edged itself into the back of the CD. You played the bad games, the good games, and the weird demos because the alternative was going outside to play football. And as we established, no thanks, I'll stay with the Bandicoot. Even as a kid, I knew Crash was different. It was vibrant, it was alive. But I didn't know that Naughty Dog was basically performing digital black magic to make it work. They called it Project Sonic's Arse because you spent 90% of the game looking at Crash's backside as he ran into the screen. Naughty Dog's lead programmer, Andy Gavin, literally hacked the PlayStation's internal code. He bypassed the official Sony rules to squeeze every ounce of power out of the hardware. Sony's engineers actually thought he was cheating. They couldn't understand how a 32-bit machine was rendering lush jungles and complex facial expressions that made the N64 look like it was running on AA batteries. Let's go back to 1994. 2 guys, Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin, are driving across the country. They see the 3D revolution coming and they realise, hey, if we make a platforming in 3D, the player is just going to be looking at a character's butt the whole time. This is a literal historical fact. The working title for Crash Bandicoot was the Sonic's Arse game. They spent months figuring out how to make a Marsupial's backside look appealing in the 32-bit polygons. That is the foundation of your childhood, folks. A high-definition orange butt. At the time, Nintendo had Mario 64, which was all about open exploration. Naughty Dog went the opposite way. They built the corridor by keeping the path narrow. They could pump all of PS1's power into making the environment look incredible. While Mario was running around a field in flat green textures that looked like a pool table, Crash was running through lush jungles and individual leaves and lighting effects. It was a visual knockout punch. Here is where the geeky stuff gets insane. The PS1 had a hardware limit. It could only draw a certain amount of polygons before the console basically caught fire. Naughty Dog looked at those limits and said, that's cute. Andy Gavin literally wrote his own programming language called Ghoul, Game Orientated Object Lisp. He bypassed Sony's official operating system because it was too slow. He found a way to make the PS1's memory swap data so fast it could render levels 10 times more complex than anything else on the market. Sony's engineers actually visited the office to inspect the hardware because they thought Naughty Dog was hiding a secret supercomputer inside the dev kit. It's a trick called vertex animation. Instead of using standard textures, they manipulated the actual points of the 3D model to make his expressions and face seem more fluid. In 1996, seeing Crash's eyes bug out when he saw the TNT crate was the equivalent of seeing Avatar in IMAX. It was sorcery. Do you remember the commercials? Sony didn't play nice. They hired a guy to put on a cheap, slightly creepy Crash Bandicoot suit, go to the Nintendo headquarters parking lot with a megaphone, and scream, "I'm Mario." It was the peak of the 90s console war attitude. For a 6-year-old me, it worked. I felt like I was part of the cool club. We weren't just playing a platformer. We were part of the revolution against the Italian plumber. Naughty Dog did something genius. They made losing fun. Usually dying in a game is frustrating, but Crash, the death animations were like mini cartoons. If you got flattened, you became a pancake. If you blew up, you were a floating pair of shoes and a cloud of smoke. If a fish ate you, you saw your ghost floating away playing a harp. This was a huge part of the personality. I fell in love with it. It took the sting out of the difficulty, at least for the first 50 deaths. By death number 500, even the funny ghost playing the harp starts to look like he's mocking your bloodline. Growing up, I thought I'd mastered this game. I beat the levels, I saw the credits, and I was king of the Wumpa Island. I was 6, I didn't know I was only eating the starter. I hadn't even seen the main course yet. The real challenge of Crash 1 isn't reaching the end of the level, it's the gems. To get a gem in the first game, you have to break every single box without dying once. It is unforgiving, it is brutal, it turns a cozy platformer into a high stakes survival horror. And those Cortex and Embryo bonus stages, they felt like a myth to 6-year-old me. I'd find 1 or 2 heads, but I had no idea how to unlock the rest. I was just happy to be there, spinning into crabs and hoping my scratch disc didn't skip. Here's where the cozy vibes die. Crash 1 was released before the DualShock controller. That means no analog sticks. You are playing a 3D platformer with a D-pad. Do you know how hard it is to calculate a diagonal jump onto a floating turtle shell using 4 directional buttons? It's like trying to play a violin with 2 spoons. And the save system, oh god. This is the peak of 90s cruelty. You can't just save your game, you have to find 3 hidden Torna icons, enter a bonus stage and complete it without dying. If you fail the bonus stage, you don't get to save. You just have to keep playing with your palms sweating, praying that the power doesn't go out. It's not a game, it's a hostage situation. Then there's the boxes, 105 boxes in a level. You miss one, you get a big fat 0 for the gem. And in Crash 1, you have to get all the boxes without dying once to get the gem. One death at the very end of the level, and you're starting the whole 10-minute gauntlet over. The game didn't want to be played, it wanted to be mastered through sheer soul-crushing repetition. The lore is basically the island of Dr. Monroe, but with more orange juice. The bosses in this game are burnt into my brain. Dr. Neo Cortex is the ultimate Short King villain, a man with an N on his forehead, and a severe case of Short King syndrome. He wanted to make Crash the leader of Cortex Commandos, but the machine broke, and instead of a super soldier, he got a guy who spins like a Tasmanian devil and has 0 thought behind those eyes. But the supporting cast is pure 90s gold. The bosses are a fever dream. Papu Papu, a guy who just wants to nap but you break into his house and jump on his head. Are we the baddies? Ripperoo, a kangaroo in a straitjacket who laughs like a maniac while jumping on TNT, who is basically a mirror image of my brain after 4 hours of streaming. You've got Pinstripe Potteroo, a Mafia rat who brings a Tommy gun to a spin fight, and Koala Kong, the original gym bro who just wants to throw boulders and flex. And then there's Torna, Crash's girlfriend. She's the whole reason for the first game, but then she just disappears in the sequels. The rumour back then was that Sony thought she was too sexy for a kids game, so they swapped it out for Coco, the tech-savvy sister. It's one of those weird shifts that only happens in the first entry of a franchise, where they're still figuring out the brand. So does it hold up? Visually, yes, it's still gorgeous. The soundtrack's a bop. It's the kind of music that gets into your head until you're humming it in your sleep. Because I played on a scratch-to-hell disc, the music would sometimes do this skip loop thing. I'd be halfway through Hog Wild, the music would stutter on a drum beat, and suddenly the game felt like a 90s rave. Honestly, it kinda worked. The music is so rhythmic and tribal that even when the PS1 laser was struggling for its life, the soundtrack still went hard. But mechanically, Crash 1 is a jagged, unforgiving beast. It's the Dark Souls of mascot platformers. If you want to relax on Sunday, play Crash 2 or 3. If you want to test your reflexes and your heart rate, play the original. In the PSX Index, Crash Bandicoot earns its spot as a legend, but it's a legend that demands respect and a lot of spare controllers. Even though the sequels came out rapidly, one year after another, the difficulty in the first entry never let up. It's the rawest version of the character. No slide jump, no body slam, just you, a D-pad and a prayer. So where does it sit on the PSX Index? It's a 10 out of 10 for nostalgia, but a 6 out of 10 for my blood pressure. It's a game that reminds me of a time when getting a new game was a treat. It wasn't just digital data, it was a physical object that you cherished until the plastic cracked. It's clunky, the save system is a war crime, and the difficulty is a vertical wall. But it's also the reason I'm sitting here today. It's the game that taught me that even if a game is hard, even if it's bad, or even if you're only playing it because you refuse to go outside, you finished the mission. It's not as cozy as I remembered, but it's 100 times more rewarding than Twisted Metal. It feels like a game, a bridge between simple 2D past and a complex 3D future. It is a mandatory entry for anyone building a PS1 library. The difficulty curve isn't a curve, it's a vertical wall covered in spikes. Levels like the high road and slippery climb are legendary for breaking players' spirits. The beach was nice, but my thumbs are blistered and I never want to see a crate again. That's 5 games down, 1,273 to go. The mission is moving forward. I mentioned Power Soccer was in that bundle. Looking back, it's hilarious. On one hand, you'd have Crash Bandicoot, a technical marvel that pushed the hardware to its absolute limit. On the other hand, you've got Power Soccer, a game that looked like it was rendered on a microwave. But because it was part of the first 5, I treated it with the same respect as Crash. I learned every weird glitchy mechanic. I mastered the sport I didn't even like. That's the power of the Index. It forces you to find the beauty of the stinkers, because they were part of your story. Next week, we're leaving platforming behind. We're moving from Sonic's arse to the king of Iron Fist. But we are driving, we're fighting, we're moving from the catalogue bundles of my childhood to the smoky arcades of the 90s. It's time for the most famous fighting tournament in history to make its 3D debut on the console. We're talking the King of Iron Fist. Next time on the PSX Index, Episode 6, Tekken. Catch the raw footage on Twitch and subscribe for the history. This has been Parasan. Don't touch the TNT crates. I'll see you in the arena.